Welcome to the Osmo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal EMAC coming to you on a Saturday morning with one Adam Ship My Money Share as we head into December, navigating the second trimester of the NBA season. Most teams have hit about 25 games. So we've got that going for us. We've got week 14 of NFL underway. And we've got 24 days of giveaways where we've got new prizes. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. In the meantime, how are you doing, Adam?
Doing pretty well. Looking forward to talking about Saturday's slate. Friday night's kind of ended before it even got started with the Stanley Johnson late scratch after that game supposedly had, after the scheduled tip time. So night ended pretty early for me. Really high scoring night anyway. So those are never that much fun, but excited to start talking about Saturday.
All right. Well, before we jump off into anything, there was a trade on Friday. It was a 3-team deal. We have Sam Dekker is going to the Wizards along with the second-round pick. The Cavs and the Wizards are going to swap second-round picks. Cleveland, once all the dust settles, ended up with Matthew Dellavedova and John Henson along with the Milwaukee Bucks first round. What did they give up, you say? Well, they gave up George Hill. And that apparently is worth a first-rounder. So it looks like Milwaukee is going to go all in at the moment. John Henson is out for another 10 weeks. I believe he had wrist surgery. So Cleveland, once again, just parking it, kicking the can down the road. But they do get Matthew Dellavedova back in a bit of a reunion. And Washington, what are we going to do with Sam Dekker? I have no idea, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing was that Milwaukee cleared like $20 million in cap space for next summer.
There we go. All right. Well, let's hit. Let's do the 24 days of giveaways. And then we got a whole bunch of news and notes. But for this next week, for 24 days of giveaways, you guys should already know that as long as you are putting a comment at the bottom of the YouTube shows after they go off air, you can get. You'll see a comment section pop up. You can leave a thumbs up for us and put a comment there. And then on iTunes, you can give us a rating. Rate us appropriately. I think we're worth 5 stars, but you guys rate us appropriately. You can give us 4.5 since I'm dragging Adam down. I know the ladies love Adam. Our demographics have increased dramatically, Adam, since you have joined with us here. But we've got some interesting prizes now for this next week. The prize is going to be, as I scroll to figure out what it is. Oh my gosh, we have a swag shop. If you go to shop.osmo.com, you can choose a piece of merchandise if you're the lucky winner from the random drawing of each person that puts a comment on all of our shows throughout the day. They're all put together, and then you get one drawing. You can choose something from the Osmo.com shop, or you can get a free 1-month pass to any sport of your choosing, all access. And then by leaving a comment, you will be eligible for the grand prize drawing of 1 full year of premium content, the all access annual pass that will happen on December 24th. So what you guys need to do is, for this show, if you're doing it on YouTube, if you're listening on YouTube or on iTunes, tell us your favorite NBA trade that you've seen, and just say the favorite guy that your team got in a trade. Just got to list that, and you'll be put in the drawing. All right, Adam, here is the not so quick news and notes. Those that are on back-to-backs that played Friday and will be playing Saturday include Sacramento, Brooklyn, Chicago, Memphis, Miami, the Lakers, Denver, and Indiana. We've got the Knicks are the only team playing on Saturday that will be playing on Sunday. In that early game, which we are not going to spend much time on at all for the podcast, that is Houston and Dallas. We do know that Dennis Smith Jr. is doubtful with the sprained wrist on his shooting hand, and Marquise Chris and Brandon Knight are both out. So you don't need to worry about them. For everybody else, we have Spellman is out with a hip injury. Plumlee is doubtful with a knee injury. Jeremy Lin is out with a back injury. Taurean Prince is out for 3 weeks with an ankle injury. And Trae Young has announced that he has hit the rookie wall. Those are all for Atlanta. For Indiana, we have Oladipo, who is out indefinitely with the knee injury. He has been participating in shoot around, but that's it. So he's probably just kind of out there, but not doing anything basketball related other than maybe taking a few shots. We had Sabonis not play on Friday. He has an illness, so he is already listed as questionable for Saturday. That means Kyle O'Quinn could be in play. He is coming off a 27-minute double-double Friday night. We have Marvin Bagley III, who played Friday night, had a nice game. He's been doubtful or game-time decision the last 3 games, missing most of them with a back injury. We'll have to see if he plays in the back-to-back. Gary Harris, it was out on Friday. He is doubtful for Saturday. He's dealing with a hip injury. It sounds like Paul Millsap broke his toe. That's going to free up some minutes. We'll have to look towards Jokic. We will have to consider Plumlee, and potentially those minutes can trickle upward. John Wall for the Wizards, we're not sure of his status. Congratulations, birth of his first child, but we don't know his status for Saturday's game. We know that Jeff Green is probable with a back injury. Jason Smith no longer with the team. He is questionable with a neck injury, but everybody that's been involved in that trade is not going to play, which of course would be George Hell, would be Decker, and Dellavedova. So that is all we have for Washington. For Cleveland, we have Nwaba is doubtful with the knee. He did not play on Friday. Zizic, questionable with a knee. And then moving along here, Brooklyn, we have Joe Harris. He is probable with the groin injury. For the Knicks, we know that Burke is out with an MCL. He may play Saturday. He may play Sunday. He may not play until next week. Thanks, Knicks. Appreciate your clarity on that one. Baines is dealing with an ankle injury. He thinks he's going to play. His coach says he's really tough, but the coach isn't sure he's going to play. For Chicago, we have Portis and Dunn, both doubtful with their MCL injuries, but they are getting closer and they are practicing. So that's something to keep an eye on because, remember, it seemed like we were 4 or 5 days away from Lauri Markkanen, and all of a sudden he appeared a couple days early. So keep those guys in the back of your mind just because they could muck up some of the potential minutes. We have Brandon Ingram out for the Lakers. Josh Hart got the last start. We'll have to see who starts on Saturday. Joakim Noah made his first appearance with Memphis, played 13 minutes. Just keep that one in mind. Not that we want to play him, but it does mean that Gasol has somewhat of a credible backup, but it's hard to see Noah going more than 13 to 17 minutes per game. We have CJ McCollum, who is out on Thursday. He's probable against on Saturday, expected to play. That was an ankle injury. And then Miami wrapping things up. We have Dragic is questionable. This is a back-to-back, but he's been dealing with a knee injury. And then we do not know the status, both for personal reasons, Wayne Ellington and Hassan Whiteside attending the births of their children. Wow, Adam, that's an awful lot to unpack there.
Yeah, sounds like a really fun Saturday of writing about this slate for me.
Well, thankfully, you'll be doing that. And for those of you not yet behind the paywall, if you use the promo code EARLYBIRD, all one word, when you sign up for Awesemo.com, you can get a 1-week free trial. And Adam writes the deep dive, which is exactly that. It is a dive deep into all of the goodness for NBA on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Lofty writes those Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. These guys go way, way into the metrics, touches, isolated plays, pick and rolls, all the exciting stuff, rim defense. Forget about plus minus, a real plus minus. You guys go really into the stats here.
Yeah, it's a pretty good article to start your day, and then you obviously have the deeper dive show following that up later in the day.
All right, well, let's let you do a little chatter here for a while. We've got point guards. Let's kick it off with 2 of our favorites. We have Damian Lillard, and then let's think. I'm going to assume John Wall is going to play for this one. I think we'll know well in time, but this seems like a good matchup to have hey, I just had a kid game in Cleveland against Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, both of those guys at the top in Wall and Lillard, obviously, very appealing options, but not really sure that that's where I want to prioritize spending my money on this slate. Obviously a very, very early look at this, but just looking at the depth of this position, you have John Wall here in a huge pace down spot against Cleveland. That's not to say that he can't have a big game. We just had Darren Fox last night absolutely torch this team, but it is a pace down game. His price tag isn't really that cheap, and there's a ton of upside in the mid-range that we'll talk about. Dame Lillard here, he clearly has 60-plus fantasy point upside, but this Minnesota defense as a whole has been much better since acquiring Robert Covington, and again, it's just a really, really deep point guard position, so I'm not sure that I want to spend all the way to the top of it on Damian Lillard. If you can find a lineup that that you like where you do so, then fine. But just from an early perspective, it's not that I dislike either of these guys. It's just that I do really like some of the mid-range at this position.
All right. I'm going to guess that the mid-range guy that's standing out is Jamaal Murray. He's sitting there at 7,800. Wow, that is pretty spendy on DraftKings. We have not seen him up at these lofty heights. He crested over 7,000 on Friday when he dropped a 40-burger there in Charlotte. His 2 games prior to that, 50 fantasy points against Orlando, and then 40 in Toronto. He's been playing some heavy minutes with 40, 46, and 36 in his last 3 games. But I don't think that's really that outrageous when you consider he's prior to that, he's ran in the mid to upper 30s for a good half dozen games. We know that Harris is doubtful. We know that Millsap is going to be out. Adam, do we trust Murray enough to call him a core building block for Saturday?
I think so, especially if Harris is out. I mean, you have Millsap out, you have Harris who may or may not play, but Murray basically locked into about 36 minutes a night when Harris is in there. We've seen him tick up to 38 to 40 when Harris sits, played 37 last night on the front end of the back-to-back, but he does get a marginal increase in his usage rate without Gary Harris. You would expect it to go up a little bit more without Paul Millsap as well. I mean, suddenly you're talking, not that Trey Lyles is a low-usage guy, and he's who I would expect to be getting the start for Millsap. But, you're just talking about 2 of the 20 to 22% usage guys from the starting unit, disappearing. So I just think that the matchup, huge boost in pace for Denver, combined with the monster minutes that Murray plays, makes him a very strong option. And yeah, he's part of the reason where, Wall and Lillard, sure, Lillard especially has that monster 60-point upside, but Murray can go out there and throw up 45 or 50. And if he does that, it kind of forces you trying to maximize your ceiling, it would force you to get that 60 burger from Lillard or Wall, which, obviously any given night's asking for a lot.
All right, another guy I'm guessing that's going to stand out for you is Darren Fox. He's kind of become a guy that almost everybody to a person at Osmo.com likes and tends to talk about a lot, but it has definitely been a nice next level step here for the youngster from the Kings. Over his last 8 games, he is averaging just shy of 25% usage rate. He is coming off a 59 fantasy point performance in Cleveland on Friday. He has just been sublime, I guess is the word. He's just been outstanding. Now, I do want to point out that was his second high, or one off his season high, 30 points tonight. He did have 31 points against Atlanta back at the beginning of November. He hasn't topped 20 fantasy or 20 regular points other than 2 times in that stretch. So a lot of the Friday's goodness was based on scoring. But this guy's been doing it with assists. He approaches 7.5 to 8 per game. He's getting multiple steals per game more often than not, chipping in with some blocks here and there. I really like Darren Fox. And we did see this matchup just back on the first when Sacramento took out a 1-point win last Friday night in Sacramento against the Pacers. I like this matchup for Fox. What do you have? Do you like Fox, and is there anybody else below him?
It's not really the matchup that I like. Indiana's a very slow-paced team, and they are a quality team defensively. It's Darren Fox, though. I mean, as weird as that sounds to say, based like last year, he was so inconsistent and such a pain in the ass, and then this year he's really been one of my favorite players to see develop. But the price tag's actually, at least looking at the DraftKings price, down to 7,200. It's actually come down a little bit to account for the pace and the matchup here, which I think just gives him plenty of upside. He only played 29 minutes last night in a game that the Kings easily won. So it's not even like he played his full allotment of minutes on the front end of that back-to-back. You should get 34 to 36 minutes as long as this game's competitive. So I just think that, it's a price point where you kind of can pretty easily get past the fact that it's a pace-down game against a good defense.
All right. Awesome. As you can tell, I'm at my parents' house. That's their phone ringing. It's my brother calling. So there we go. Shout out for State of Washington, where it's a little earlier than it is on the East Coast. Thank you for Adam for staying up to his normal bedtime, which is well past my bedtime.
This makes so much more sense now. I forgot you were in Washington. I was just like, okay, you're going to dinner. We're going to record the podcast at 11. What the hell am I missing?
There you go. I went out and had dinner with my cousins. It was my wife's birthday. So we're out here in Washington State. It was a lovely pizza party dinner. So there we go. Lots of younger cousins with my cousins. So multiple generations of cousins there. It was a good time. Good time. But finishing up the guard spot here, Colin Sexton will now have Matthew Dellavedova joining him, but he gets that pace-up matchup against the Washington Wizards. He is someone who's interesting. He also has now, we've got Jordan Clarkson that's had a couple good games, and we have Alec Burks that's had a few good games. What do you make of this Cleveland guards now that we know that George Hill is out of the mix, and it's unlikely that any of these guys are going to play on Saturday that were involved in that trade because they need everybody to clear physicals, etc.
Right. It gives us a really, really, really thin rotation. You go and you look at what they did yesterday, and basically they ran a 7-man rotation. You had Jalen Jones, Ante Zizic, and Channing Frye each play 4 or 5 minutes, but that was blowout run in a non-competitive game. You had Blossom game play 17 minutes, but Rodney Hood only played 15 because he left the game with an injury. So basically you can count that as one person. You got 35 minutes from Colin Sexton, and probably would have played more. I don't have that popcorn machine loaded yet, but I assume he probably lost a couple of minutes, in a 19-point game. So there should just be monster minutes here for Colin Sexton, who, going back over the last month or so, has a 25.5% usage rate. It's not a bad matchup against a fast-paced Washington team that offers a huge boost in pace for Cleveland. It's not a good Washington defense, and all the opportunity in the world should be there for Sexton at a cheap price tag. So again, I talked about the upside in the mid-range, but even going a little bit cheaper and getting down to like Colin Sexton at $4,900 just gives you, I think, a lot of point per dollar upside and opens up salary for you at other positions.
All right, speaking of other positions, let's head over here to the 2 guard. We've got shooting guard, several people, of course, with multi-position eligibility on DraftKings. So we're going to talk about a couple guys that we did not cover there at the point guard position. One guy who is expensive, and I think he's probably going to fall off of your list because of this, but it's D'Angelo Russell, and he's checking in at just over $8,000. So that is definitely a lofty price point for him. Especially considering he's been about 10 to 15% less than that in his last few games. But he has been up and down. It's been a bit of a roller coaster. But over his last few games, Adam, let's just look at raw fantasy points. 43, 27, 54, 22, 46, 36, 62. Those are some big numbers. Is he worth tournament consideration, or do you think you can find some consistency with a little better price per dollar production?
Yes and no. I mean, it's certainly not some. If I'm playing 150 lineups, I want some exposure to D'Angelo Russell because he still has plenty of upside at 8,100. This is a guy with legitimate 50 fantasy point upside in a very friendly matchup against the Knicks. He's playing 32 to 34 minutes in competitive games, especially ones where he plays well. And since the Karis LeVert injury, you're looking at a usage rate up around 32% with a 30+% assist percentage as well. So just a huge part of this Brooklyn offense, and really has the opportunity to play more minutes than anyone on this team as well. So there's upside. It's just that he is a volatile player. And in general, I think the way to approach those guys is to, 1, look to roster them at low ownership, and 2, look to roster them when they're toward the bottom of their salary range. He's someone who you tend to see his salary fluctuate quite a bit because he's, an inconsistent player. So when you're rostering him at the top end, you're just taking on more risk. You're not getting any more reward than you ever were. You're just taking on more risk. So it makes it less appealing than, last night when he was 6,900 against Toronto. I thought it was a good spot to take a chance. Now it's a little bit riskier, even though the matchup is better. But the upside's still there, if you're playing a bunch of lineups.
All right, a couple guys I'm not a fan of. One would be Josh Richardson going against the Clippers there with a lot of the people relatively healthy, and I'm not even that worried about what's going on with the Dragon, Goran Dragic, but he has not topped 30 fantasy points in his last 3 games. We're paying relatively adequate $6,700 price tag, but just not seeing a ton of upside there unless we get word that a couple people are out. Hey, it's Miami. There's always a chance. All of a sudden we find out that Whiteside is out, Ellington's out for sure, and then Dragic sits. It's an entirely different story. But in the meantime, not really feeling excited about him. The Bogdanoviches face off against each other again. Both their prices have gone up, so I'm not doing cartwheels about that. If I had to choose one, I would probably take Bojan Bogdanovic for Indiana, but Bogdanovic for Sacramento has been pretty solid, but I think those guys are still a little spendy. For me, I'm probably going to go down all the way to $5,300 Lou Williams. Seems appealing. A $4,300 Evan Turner looks nice, and maybe Burks or Jordan Clarkson, as you mentioned, in that thin Cleveland rotation. Anybody else here at the shooting guard position that intrigues you?
Yeah, I mean, I want to point out Zach LaVine's price tag on DraftKings. He's $7,600. It's obviously a bad matchup with Boston, but we've seen it. Maybe it's just me, but it feels to me like in the last week or couple of weeks, DraftKings has gotten more aggressive with their dynamic pricing, which is something we've seen in previous seasons. But you're seeing guys really fluctuate based on their matchup. D'Angelo Russell, obviously being an example we already talked about, jumped $1,200 going from Toronto on Friday night to the Knicks tonight. Zach LaVine, $7,600 against Boston. Yes, he's inconsistent. Yes, the matchup sucks. Yes, there's a good chance that Boston blows out Chicago. That's all factored into this price when you're talking about someone who's going to chuck up 20-plus field goal attempts and play 38 minutes in a competitive game. All that risk is in a $7,600 price tag. At the end of the day, price is what matters. Price and opportunity are what matters. And everything else is just a function of that. So the fact that the price has dropped makes it so the matchup against Boston is not as concerning, especially because people tend to just look at Boston and keep it moving. So LaVine at $7,600 I think is just pretty inexpensive and too cheap on DraftKings. But beyond that, both the Cleveland guys that you mentioned, I like quite a bit here. It's a really appealing matchup against Washington, as we already mentioned, but the price tags just didn't really move. I mean, Jordan Clarkson sitting at $5,100, I believe is actually $100 cheaper than Friday night. Alec Burks at $3,900 is $200 less expensive. Alec Burks played 38 minutes in that game. Jordan Clarkson, I don't remember off the top of my head how many minutes he played, but I know he had a productive game, as you would expect. The guy's got a 30% usage rate, and now he's locked into at least like 30 minutes a night. He did play 30 against the Kings. So both of those guys I think stand out as just top of the line plays here at very reasonable price tags.
All right, one guy that could be a potential risk I'm looking at here is Josh Hart. And we mentioned that he did get the start when Brandon Ingram was out. He played 36 minutes. He's only $3,700. He scored 13 fantasy points in those 36 minutes. That's something we usually don't see from him. Generally, he's been a guy that gets a ton more rebounds than most guards do. But the makeup of the Lakers has changed so much with LeBron, with JaVale McGee, with Tyson Chandler. We're just not seeing that as much. And I think he feels a little bit like a trap. But at $3,700, Adam, if he's starting, I think I'm going to be enticed by that number.
Yeah, so I mean, the price tag's appealing. He did play 36 minutes, like you said. So far this season without Ingram, or going into Friday night's game, without Ingram or Rondo on the floor playing alongside LeBron and Ball, Hart was averaging about 3/4 of a fantasy point per minute. One thing, you mentioned the different makeup of the team. He was a very big beneficiary last season of Brook Lopez's presence, which, obviously at first listen doesn't make a lot of sense. But Brook Lopez boxes guys out, and Josh Hart was just crashing the boards and grabbing rebounds. So you saw him just throwing up like double-double after double-double last season. That's not the case now when you have Chandler and JaVale McGee at the 5. So the rebounding numbers have taken a hit for that reason. Obviously, LeBron being there is another high-usage guy. I mean, it's also just a brutal matchup against Memphis. There's just really no argument that I can make for taking 36 minutes of Josh Hart against Memphis at $3,700 over, let's say, for argument's sake, 36 minutes of Alec Burks at $3,900 against Washington.
All right, let's head on to the small forward position. Reminder, we are going to do the Saturday DFS strategy show. That will be Adam and myself. We will be going game by game, getting into a lot more detail here, breaking down different matchups, chasing the rabbit down the hole, around the trails, and finding some intriguing goodness that will not only help you for Saturday, but will help you for future matchups going forward. Looking at small forward here, LeBron James in that tough matchup. He, of course, is matchup proof. $10,600, not the worst price. We're seeing Tobias Harris drop all the way down to $7,400. He's got the matchup with Miami coming into Los Angeles, but he has hit a bit of a wall himself production-wise, but that 7,400 price point is really nice. And gosh, Danilo Gallinari is all the way up to 6,900, or should I say at least that gap is closing between him and Tobias. What do you like there at the top with King James and then looking at the Clippers small forwards?
Pretty ugly position, at least at the top. James obviously is a strong play no matter who he's facing, but just, one of the least appealing matchups you can get going against Memphis on a back-to-back. It is worth mentioning that heading into Friday night's game without Ingram or Rondo on the floor, LeBron had a 35% usage rate and the 35% assist percentage. You saw an uptick in both of those without those guys out there. So clearly a boost for him. The price tag is reasonable. It does factor in Memphis. I think he's probably a better play on FanDuel. Going to pull up his price over there. I don't have it in front of me, but just because you do have to roster two small forwards and it's not the prettiest position. But, 11-1 on FanDuel I think is fine. If I get to LeBron, I get to LeBron. I'm not going to force him in the lineups, though, just because I think that mid-range at different positions is pretty strong on this slate.
All right. I'm not really a fan of any of these other small forwards, so I was looking for some value guys real quick. Again, we're going to give everybody a ton on the Saturday morning show, but we do have Juancho Hernan-Gomez. He is small forward, power forward eligible here on DraftKings. Denver is on a back-to-back. They will be facing Atlanta. They will be without Paul Millsap, who it's reported that he has likely broken his toe. And this is phenomenal. Granted, it was 3 weeks ago, but Juancho in 31 minutes dropped a 40-burger on these very same Atlanta Hawks. The next game after that, it was New Orleans. He had played 35 minutes. He had another 40 fantasy points, scuffled for a couple games, and then he's got 6 in a row with between 25 and 35 fantasy points. I think I found my cheapie, and he's not only small forward eligible, he's power forward eligible, which means he's forward eligible and utility. Adam, he could fit in any one of 4 slots on DraftKings. All the Juancho Hernan-Gomez. Talk some sense into me.
Yeah, I hate Juancho Hernan-Gomez, but I agree with you. Like, I hate the guy, but it's a good matchup against Atlanta. Millsap being out shouldn't hurt, that's for sure. And the minutes are going to be there. He's cheap. The position sucks. Whatever. Play Hernan-Gomez. I think that Chetty Osman at a similar price point is a good play. Should play monster minutes against the Wizards. God, I just hate Hernan-Gomez, but I agree with you.
All right. Let's just
I just wanted to kind of point out, not at the top, but Josh Richardson at 6,700, because the position is so bad. He did play 39 minutes last night. The minutes are going to be there. He didn't do anything with those minutes, but normally he's had higher usage this year. He's been more involved offensively. So I think that as a guy that probably shouldn't let you down in the spot too often, that's a perfectly fine price tag for Richardson.
All right, so let's talk power forwards here. We have John Collins, who is coming off a back-to-back 40 fantasy point outings. His price has come up, but he has been wildly efficient here, playing almost exactly 30 minutes per game, and he is not letting us down. He's averaging just under a double-double. It looks like, eyeballing it looks like about a 17-9 over his last 7 games. He has been over 20 NBA points in 3 of those 4, and he has double-digit rebounds in 6 of those, or 6 of 7. So that's pretty exciting. I like him. Wendell Carter Jr., somewhat intriguing at 5,400. Not the greatest matchup going against Boston, but he is going to make the short list. Montrezl Harrell, 6,500, finally had a not stellar game, a not efficient game, but he's someone that generally makes my short list. Anybody else standing out? We have Marvin Bagley in what should be a good matchup, but he is this will be a back-to-back for him, and he missed a couple games with a back injury. So I'm listing him as questionable. We should know well in advance of tip if he's going to play or not. Jaren Jackson, or did Laffy officially get a name for him? Is it Jaren Jackson?
It's Jaren Jackson.
Jaren Jackson Jr. is in trouble. He has struggled once again with the fouls. He's got a matchup here against the Lakers. Not so sure I want to go to that. Goodness, Adam, this one's not as exciting. Thankfully, Juancho Hernan-Gomez is power forward eligible. I may need him at power forward.
Yeah, give me Jaren Jackson. Love the spot here. Obviously, he fouls anyone. and everyone. But it's just such a good spot for him, in a huge pace-up game against the Lakers. As long as he can stay out of foul trouble, he should be fine. And, talking tournaments, the upside, I think, is just, well worth it. John Collins, you mentioned the price coming up, and obviously it has. But it's just kind of funny how you look at it and it's like, damn, John Collins is up to $6,800. But then you keep in mind that for a while he was just $2,000 cheaper than he should have been, and it's not as upsetting. So I still think John Collins is fine. Like I said, I like Jackson. I like the Bagley call. I had zero interest in him on last night's slate, but here against the big Indiana team, I think it makes sense, and the price tag's appealing. Should play around 30 minutes. Got Kosta Koufos being back is really frustrating because they're playing him for God knows what reason. We saw Bagley get some backup center minutes in the second half. He didn't get any in the first half, but Koufos' presence could make some of Bagley's minutes less productive than they had been. But I still think that on this slate at this position, it's fine. The one guy to point out, though, and I mean, obviously we're still waiting on official confirmation of Paul Millsap being out. But if Millsap's out, Trey Lyles is $3,600. All this guy needs is the opportunity to play. It's a obviously phenomenal matchup against Atlanta. Lyles is a very, very productive player. This isn't your normal backup that, just isn't really that good and doesn't contribute. And he's just being forced into more minutes. Like, this guy is a productive per minute player, and he should play a ton of minutes now because for basically the entire season, we've had Millsap and Lyles splitting 48 minutes at the 4. So you should see Lyles now just getting a bunch of minutes if Millsap sits.
Yep, you can kind of throw in Mason Plumlee at 4,100 as well. I do prefer Lyles, but hey, if they're going to be shorthanded there for Denver in what is a fantastic matchup, we can load up. Last guy, as we transition over here to the center spot, Bam Adebayo, 5,400. If we get word that Hassan Whiteside is out for personal reasons, which is attending to his newborn, I think he is someone that, or I think that Adebayo is someone that deserves consideration at 5,400. If Whiteside is back, it makes it a little more tenuous. We're getting over here to where we have a lot of good options here at center, Adam. We've got a great matchup for Enes Kanter going against Brooklyn. We have Karl Anthony Towns squaring off with Yusuf Nurkic. That should be interesting for both of these guys. Jokic, again, gonna need to be the guy. It is a back-to-back, but it's Atlanta. So we got to figure that Denver, let's see, yep, they do have the odds up already. Denver is favored by 7 on the road, but we never know when that is going to the big point spread may not occur until late in the fourth quarter. The only fear with Jokic is he going to shoot enough? What do you like here at the pivot position?
Yeah, I mean, so as far as that Adebayo goes, I think it's pretty easy. If Whiteside's out, just go to Adebayo again. There's no reason not to. The guy's an absolute animal when he gets minutes. When Whiteside's in, can't do it at this price tag. Like, you're not even – you can't even play him at that price anymore hoping to get like 20 minutes out of him because it's just too expensive. So completely dependent on Whiteside there, but it is a good matchup. I like whichever Miami guy is starting. You mentioned Jokic. The matchup against Atlanta is a great one. The only concern is that it's a back-to-back, played 33 minutes last night. Malone has already been on record saying that he's trying to be cautious with minutes on back-to-backs. So at the very least, I would think that you see him not push him in any sort of non-competitive game, but it's possible that you see him kind of trend toward 30 minutes anyway. But the matchup obviously is amazing. The price tag's fine. Karl Anthony Towns against Portland. Price tag's going up. He's been inconsistent, but at the same time, still looking at about a 28% usage rate since the Jimmy Butler trade. And a lot of Towns' inconsistency has been due to foul trouble or blowouts. So I still think that, it's a perfectly fine spot. Gasol, keep an eye on news from Memphis. Joakim Noah played 17 minutes last night. Would not be surprised at all if he sits on Saturday. And, that's one of those things that if it were announced, people would probably just be like, whatever, I don't care. I wasn't going to play Joakim Noah. It makes a difference for Gasol because if it's just Gasol and Jaren Jackson playing the 5, you're looking at Gasol playing 36 to 38 minutes in competitive games. If once you have Joakim Noah in the mix, he can comfortably play 32 to 34, and Memphis can, get him a little bit of rest. So that makes a huge difference. But maybe one of my favorite guys here at 7,300, Enes Kanter, minutes have been inconsistent, but it's a Brooklyn team that just can't rebound at all. I think he gives you some upside there as well. So once again, just a ridiculously deep center position.
All right.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I missed Tristan Thompson at 7,100. He should also be a beneficiary of George Hill being gone. It just as a result of the way the lineup shifts, and you have a harder time giving Larry Nance a bunch of backup center minutes. So a really bad rebounding Washington team, a very, very good Tristan Thompson, just another guy in the mid-range here at an absolutely loaded position.
All right, with that, we're going to cruise on out. A reminder, the 24 days of giveaways. Today's prize, if you leave a comment in the YouTube comment section or a review on the iTunes channel and a rating, you will be eligible for a drawing that will occur for a 1-month free pass to any sport of your choosing for Awesemo.com, or you can choose something from the brand new Awesemo swag shop. If you want to go take a peek at what we've got there, it's shop.awesemo.com. There's multiple hats, multiple hoodies, all kinds of shirts, winter caps. Well, there's the visor. Adam, I think you would look good in a visor. There you go.
Yeah, the Steve Spurrier look.
I'm going to order that one for you. That'll be good. Oops, did I say that out loud? That's going to be your Christmas present. So, all right, with that, gamers, we're going to get on out of here. But reminder, you can catch Adam and I around 11 a.m. Eastern Saturday as we break this slate down game by game, and it is going to be a good one. With that, gamers, good luck.